The Champions League playoff round just ended today, and I gotta say, as a neutral who was not involved in any of these games, I really, really enjoyed it. Yes, there were some snoozers here and there, but overall, I felt like a majority of these games either were entertaining or just had a lot of back and forth, a lot of dramatics. We saw some blue bloods get messed up and knocked out by smaller clubs. Like a lot happened. A lot happened. I'll touch on the smaller games or the games that weren't as important first. We'll get into the bigger ones at the end, but I'm just going to touch on these ones that are not as important first. We'll get them out the way, and then we'll really get into the juicy things. First, we're going to start with Atletico Madrid versus Club Brugge. And this was a pretty interesting game, I gotta say, from both teams really. It was 7-4 at the end of the second leg, so this scoring looks a little out there, but really when it's put into context, it's actually not as bad as it looks. This was 3-3 by the end of the first leg. I got to give it to Club Brugge. They've really done a good job of competing when in these situations. I know they haven't gone on to win anything or make any seriously deep runs recently, but still, this is a well-respected club over in Spain, and to give that type of fight was something that you wanted to see. And again, as a neutral, I appreciate that they even competed. And going into the second leg, again, it was 3-3. Both teams equalized. It was 4-4, and then Atletico, they just pulled away. They had 3 goals from Soloth in the second leg, and it was just too much for Club Brugge, which, again, this is kind of what you were expecting. I don't think anyone was surprised by this result. Again, I want to give Club Brugge, though, their flowers. They at least made this an interesting, an interesting 2 legs before things really got out of hand in Madrid. But Madrid, we expected this. I know that they haven't had the season at times that they've wanted in the league, but they're in a decent spot. They qualified for the round of 16, the UCL, and they're currently up 4-0 after 1 leg with Barcelona. So things could be worse. Obviously, there are some things that they wish they could change, but I don't think they're in the worst position right now as a club. Newcastle won 9-3 over 2 legs over Qarabag. There's not going to be much to discuss about this one, but we'll get into it. In just the first leg, Anthony Gordon scored 4 goals. Not 1, not 2, not 3, 4. 4 goals. I know it was against a weaker competition, but still, it's the Champions League. You score 4 goals in 1 leg. That's something you're never going to forget. I like to see that Gordon is at least hitting his stride. We all know that there is something in there for him as a player. He just has to consistently put it together. Yes, you're not going to be seeing that type of skill gap and that type of talent in the Premier League and really in the later rounds of the Champions League, but still to see him do it in that stage, I thought that was really big for him. And this game was over already going into the second leg. It was 6-1 at the end of the first leg, but the second leg, it was already over, but it was really over. 6 minutes into that, Newcastle made it 8-1 at the time. Again, Qarabag, they ended up getting a few goals by the end to make it 9-3, but still, this was just completely over. It was already over going into the second leg, but it was over when it was 8-1. Really not much else to say. Newcastle are flying in the Champions League as of right now. Again, a season that they haven't really wanted to go their way, at least in the Premier League. It just hasn't been the type of season that they want, but you can still right your ship in the Champions League. This is obviously the most important part of the rest of your season, in my opinion. We'll see what they can do. I think if Newcastle get hot, maybe they can go on a little bit of a run. I don't know if they can go all the way, but hey, this is something you want to take as a positive. Again, you're not where you want to be in the league. Try to focus on the positives while you can and just kind of keep going. But I liked what I saw from Newcastle, even if the competition was very poor. The last game that we're going to talk about real quick is Bayern Leverkusen over Olympiacos. They won 2-0. They had 2 goals in the first leg from Schlick, if I'm saying his name correctly. I didn't get to see much of that first leg, I'm not going to lie, so I'm not going to pretend like I'm here to analyze that, but I did watch the second leg. It was a snooze fest. Really not much to take from this. A result that we all kind of expected. Again, I thought Bayern Leverkusen would beat Olympiacos. There's just obviously a talent gap. And it's good to see that Bayern Leverkusen are still doing their thing, even post Xabi Alonso leaving. So, hey, we'll see what happens in the round of 16. They can be a threat, but they qualified. That's really all I got to say about them. All right, on to the big boys. And we're going to start with Real Madrid versus Benfica. Real Madrid win 3-1 over 2 legs. And there's a lot of drama with this, and rightfully so. If you were living under a rock, I guess you maybe just didn't hear about this, but in the first leg, after Vinicius Jr. made it 1-0, apparently, I mean, there's just a whole situation really here. He gets booked for celebrating because he did a little celebration in front of the fans for Benfica. Apparently, their fans weren't liking it, and then it was caught on the camera that one of the Benfica players made a comment to Vinicius with his shirt up. Apparently, it was a racial comment from what Vinicius and other Real Madrid players were saying. Apparently, the player for Benfica said that it was a homophobic comment. Regardless, both are embarrassing, both are soft, both are a weak mentality, and I don't stand for either or of those. So regardless of what he said, it's sad, it's disgusting, and I'm glad that UEFA banned him. He should not have played in the second leg, which I thought was the right decision for both his safety and for the respect of the game and for Vinicius Jr. I hope to see UEFA continue to hopefully put out more strict punishments because being racist in 2026 is just wild, and you can't let that slide. But now on to the actual parts of the game. I thought Vini's goal in the first leg was beautiful. It was a great goal. Really all him on that one. Again, pure skill. Look, if you end up rattling some feathers and people start making racist remarks about you because you did a little dance in front of their fans, that's their problem. It's not yours. Don't stoop to their level, and Vinicius didn't do that. Heading into the second leg, I think everyone expected Real Madrid to pull this one away, especially with Jose Mourinho also not being able to coach in this game because of the whole racial incident. Benfica actually made it 1-1. They scored, but then Real Madrid scored right back to make it 2-1, so they responded instantly, and I really like seeing that from Real Madrid. And then pretty much at the end of the game, Vinicius puts it away. He has a nice goal. He does the same dance that really rattled all of the Benfica players. And again, rightfully so. Do your dance, bro. If you're gonna score, you're you're allowed to do that type of celebration. You're allowed to do those type of things. Maybe it's different because I'm an American and I see the American players celebrate all the time, but I just can't believe people get this rattled about a celebration. Regardless, glad to see that Vini scored. I thought it was fitting again with just all the stuff that he dealt with in the last week. And I love seeing the football community kind of rally around him as well. And yeah, that's really all I got from this game. I like the attack that I saw from Real Madrid. At times, there were some defensive woes. I did feel like Benfica had chances and just didn't capitalize on them. But again, this is a result that we expected. This is Real Madrid. Yes, I know that they've had to go through the playoffs to get into the Champions League round of 16, but still, they qualified, they made it. This is what we expect. Curious to see how they look once Mbappe is back as well. Now, here's where it starts to get really, really juicy. Bodo beat Inter Milan 5-2 over 2 legs. I think this has got to be one of the bigger upsets that I can remember from my time of watching this sport. And in the first leg, Bodo won 3-1 at their home game, their home stadium. They won, and in my opinion, they looked very, very good. Yes, Inter had 1 goal, but still, the fact that they put up 3 in front of Inter, and I thought that was really the way to start, start the game and set the tone for the second leg. Because even though Inter were going to be hosting in the second leg, it still puts so much pressure on a team when you're up 3-1. I mean, you pretty much have to be all out on the attack. And Inter, they did end up scoring in the second leg, so they had some chances, but after that, it didn't really matter because they weren't able to put enough chances away. I feel like they, again, similar to some of the teams that I'm going to be discussing in this video, they had a lot of chances and they just couldn't put some away. They definitely looked better, at least in the start of the second leg, but once it hit around, I think, the 60th to 70th minute, Bodo, they just had some great counterattacking football, and I really loved what I saw from them. They put 2 away to make it 5-2 at the end of the second leg, and again, it was just very free-flowing, a lot of counterattack, really just hitting Inter on the break, hitting them on the break. And one of the things that really stood out to me from watching Inter, specifically in this game, but it also reminds me of the final from last spring against PSG, was, man, Inter, they just look old, they look slow, they don't look like they can compete athletically, and we saw that. A lot of Bodo's players, they were just doing what they were supposed to be doing, but it also just looked like they almost had a little bit of a boost compared to Inter. Now, at the same time, for a context perspective, it does make sense because I didn't even know this until doing a little bit of research, but Bodo aren't even really playing league play right now because it's so cold from where they are, but they're still in the Champions League. So they have literally their entire focus right now is on the UCL because they're not playing any other games. So they are allowed to be a little bit more rested than Inter, but still, Inter is a way bigger team, like a way bigger club. There's more money, invested in Inter. Like, this is just a joke, in my opinion. This is a joke from them. Yes, Inter might still win the Serie A, which is great, and I'm not diminishing that at all because that is still an achievement. But man, putting up this performance over 2 legs against a club that is structurally this much smaller than you, and the second leg was at at the San Siro, it was just really, really a bad performance for Inter. And again, it's just not helping them with their discussions of the Champions League. I thought of Inter the last couple of years as a team that was really good defensively, but a team that just couldn't get over the hump. Now it just seems like they're continuing to decline. I mean, they didn't even make the round of 16. They were in the UCL final last year. Yes, even though they got blown out 5-0, but still, they at least made it to the final. They put up a great fight in that crazy 2-leg game against Barcelona, all for even under a year. It's not even been a full year yet, to be knocked out by Bodo in the playoffs, to not even make the round of 16. Just absolutely nuts in my opinion. Though Bodo was the bigger upset, this had to be the juiciest one out of them all. Galatasaray defeated Juventus 7-5 over 2 legs. Yes, I'm going to repeat that again. 7-5. And Galatasaray, they came out with a bang in the first leg. I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, it was 2-2. So both teams were going back at it. And then Galatasaray just hit him again and again and again. Juve's defense, especially in the first leg, was just poor. And all of a sudden, it was 5-2 heading into the second leg. Going into the second leg, I don't think anyone really had much hope for Juventus. They've been struggling in numerous competitions, so the form was carrying over. But I gotta say, little gentleman's clap for them. I am, not involved with Juventus at all, or as a fan, or just whatever. But like, I have to give them a little bit of a gentleman's clap, just because again, they fought back. They could have chosen to not make this a game, and they did, and they fought all the way back. I'm not gonna lie, Galatasaray, the effort prior to the extra time was just, I don't know. It just, I didn't love the game plan. It just felt like they were trying to waste time. Didn't really feel like they were ever really a threat to Juventus. And once Juventus got 1 goal, the momentum just continued to just keep going. And all of a sudden, it was a second goal. All of a sudden, it's a third goal, and it's tied, and we're going to extra time. Juventus had chances in extra time to put it away, and they missed a couple key chances. And then, of course, the man that's clinical, when given the ball, he was asking for it in extra time. Asherman puts it away, makes it 6-5, and then after halftime, Galatasaray puts another one away. Credit to the Juve fans for staying all the way and clapping them up. But man, Juve are just in a weird spot right now. A weird spot. Really, all of Italian football is. Didn't expect this type of performance. I thought that they maybe at least could have beaten Galatasaray. I don't think I thought Juventus was going to go far in the Champions League past that. But look, I'll give him credit for at least competing, but man, being down 5-2, especially in the first leg, just killed this team. Just killed them. Seeing what we saw today, maybe they were a little bit more clinical with their finishing at times, but just the defensive woes for this team just were not good enough. And you really just can't bring that energy into a home game in the second leg when you're down 5-2 to start the game. It's just such a bad position to put your team in. You have to go all in on attacking. The crowd's already in a way out of the game. It's just such a bad spot. But congrats to Galatasaray. We'll see if they upset any other teams in the round of 16. But regardless, I would say this is already a success in my opinion. I'm currently editing this video and realized I didn't even talk about that Atalanta game versus Dortmund. Dortmund were up 2-0 in the first leg, all to just blow it away. Atalanta came all the way back. They came all the way back. And credit to them. Finally doing something for Italian football. Dortmund, I cannot believe that they choked this away. Not going to lie, this was just an awful look. But credit to Atalanta for getting it done. You didn't stop fighting. You could tell something was up after they had scored the second goal today. There was definitely some momentum leading their way. And to end the game, really after being up 3-2, then Dortmund responds. And then ending it on that penalty. Look, the penalty, in my opinion, was the correct call. But the fact that the guy made the penalty in that situation, like, you can't take that lightly. Like, that was so big in that moment to send them to the round of 16. But yeah, that's mostly what I had on this one. Sorry that this is a little shorter and not like the rest of the video. I just was like, wow, I didn't even talk about this game, and we have to get it in. So apologies about that. Last is PSG versus Monaco. PSG ends up winning 5-4 over 2 legs. And this one is not as juicy as Bodo versus Inter and Juve losing to Galatasaray, but I also wouldn't say it's as boring as the first couple games that I mentioned. PSG were actually down 2-0 to Monaco in the first leg, which was just shocking. But then in typical PSG fashion, specifically versus French teams, they come all the way back, and it was 3-2 heading into the second leg. I really liked what I saw from Doué, especially in that first leg. He's such a fun player to watch, and as someone that does not watch a ton of the French league, seeing him in the Champions League is always a really, really fun sight. Very excited to see him more in the round of 16, depending on who PSG play. But yeah, I thought he did really, really well in that first leg. PSG definitely looked like the better team in the second leg, and then Koulibaly gets a crucial second yellow, and Monaco are down to 10 men. The red really ended up killing them. PSG eventually scored the goals that they needed to score. Credit to Monaco for at least getting that late one to make it 5-4, but it just wasn't enough. It was already an uphill battle when you're going against PSG, but when you're on a red, it's just a tough one. So credit to them for fighting, but really I felt like this entire 2 legs was lost after they blew the 2-0 lead at home. It's just like, man, if you're not going to, really put the pressure on PSG and really go for the jugular when you're 2-0 up at home, then when are you going to get them out? So it was a tough spot to be in. Credit to them for fighting, but it just wasn't enough. That's all I had in this one. Just wanted to talk about the games. I will be talking about the draws once all those are decided on Friday. Very much looking forward to discussing that. Very excited for the round of 16. I'll be doing some predictions for that. So stay on the lookout for that type of stuff. But that's all I had in this video. If you like this video, feel free to give it a like. If you enjoy my football content, feel free to subscribe. We're going to be continuing to break down the Champions League, the Premier League, any really big games that are related to the sport, and of course the World Cup in the summer. So definitely subscribe if you're interested in that. If you have any thoughts on any of these games, drop them down in the comments down below. And my TikTok will be in the description down below as well, so check that out. And if you made it this far into the video, I greatly, greatly appreciate you. And I will see you guys on the next one. Peace, guys.